Well, how was the traffic outside? Because if that's what you're worried about, you're going to have to really get used to it.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Here we go. Because now that things are a little bit closer for the Sixers and the city when it comes to the Center City Arena, inching just a little bit closer to being complete, we have to discuss it here today on a Thursday, the day before the Sixers get back on the floor against the Indiana Pacers, right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast. Welcome here to our show presented by Bet365. As always, download the Bet365 app. And when you get in there to Bet the 365 app, you got some NBA Cup games you want to talk about, maybe a Thursday night football game you also want to get in on. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment's never ordinary.
If you bet on this arena getting built, your cash out went way up.
Yeah, I wonder what the odds were a few weeks ago.
I doubt that.
A few months ago.
I don't think that was a Bet365 special prop, as far as I know.
But we should have created one. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens, Bree producing. All of you hanging out with us there in the chat. Only one originals. Hashtag Build 76 place. Well, Kyle, we're a little bit closer to that Build 76 place actually being done. Yesterday, we teased it a little bit of how we were going to discuss it because there was a scheduled meeting at 4 p.m. that was then postponed. It was postponed twice, and it got pushed to this morning.
They really left this until the last possible minute.
Yeah, so they got it rescheduled for this morning. Got in there this morning, and a 12-4 vote for the approval of this agreement for the 76th place. It looks like it's there. One more next week on December 19th to finalize the entire deal. And with that, it looks like we're going to have to get used to this. Now, there are a lot of people, yes, no, of course, people going against it, people who do like it. There's a lot to discuss, which we have discussed a ton here last season, over the summer, and certainly at the start of this year where the conversation was really out there. But Kyle, now that we know that the 12-4 vote was there, one member was absent. Here we are, where it looks like it's finally coming to an end next week, and that the 76ers' new home.
An end with a beginning. Because then that's when this stuff goes from on paper and city council meetings and protests to this is going to impact people's lives. And so to that point, one of the big reasons that it ended up being delayed until today, and there are multiple pushbacks, is that city council yesterday, or I believe it was 2 days ago in the evening, but yesterday's when it was brought to the floor, proposed essentially double what the Sixers' original community benefits agreement was. So the Sixers had committed to $50 million previously. The city this week asked for $100 million. They ended up getting 60. So, I don't know who led those negotiations necessarily. I know Kenyatta Johnson was the face of it in many ways, but
it was Bernie Lee.
That most of the time you would expect
he will be tweeting out how much of a liar you are.
If you ask for double and only get 10 million more, I'm not sure what happened there. But so here are the brass tacks of what is in that community benefits agreement, because that's a very critical part of all this. So there's going to be $17.5 million, which is up several $1 million from the initial proposal, for a special services district. So that will be established in that arena area, and that will provide in some form public safety, cleaning, other services. There is a business disruption fund that will go toward businesses in the adjacent Chinatown community. That was originally supposed to only be around $1.6 million. Under the terms that were voted on today, that's $5 million. So during that period where there's a lot of construction, and people in the city deal with construction in their own neighborhoods, right? Where they're impacted with walking, they're impacted with whatever it might be. Businesses have scaffolds and things over them. So $5 million to things like that. They doubled the funding from around $1.5 million to $3 million for what they're calling a neighborhood security substation. And that'll be staffed by Philadelphia Police, SEPTA, Jefferson University Hospital, and I believe some other representatives there. There's $3.5 million set aside for the Philadelphia City Fund. I believe the intent of that $3.5 million is to help children in Philadelphia. Now, what that actually means, that's something that needs to be drilled down on, and you have to look into, I guess, the formal documents on all this. And then $1 million for Parks and Rec, $1 million for apprenticeship programs, $2 million for a grant program for Chinatown legacy businesses, and then $250,000 in seed money for a Chinatown land trust. So that's the outlay of that $60 million as far as we know today. And for all intents and purposes, today's vote was the vote, right? Like, this was in a smaller committee before it advances to city council. But the expectation was, if it clears this committee and it has the support of the mayor, and the mayor's office is the one who kind of put together the initial documents and whatnot for this committee, it's going to pass. And so this suggests the arena is getting built. And so there are a lot of emotions on either side of this, right? There's some strong proponents of it, but obviously a lot of strong critics for it. And I'll say what we said all summer, and every time this comes up, we have to wait and see how a lot of this plays out, because it's a $1 billion+ project. And that's where my skepticism always comes in, right? Project of this size, it's always, this looks good on paper. I'm glad they're not getting private funding, or they're not getting public funding, excuse me. They're privately funding this. They put a poison pill provision in to prevent Comcast and Eagles ownership and others from getting tax money from the city to fund future arenas being built. That's also good.
That was just a closed roof arena, though, right? That's not an open.
Yeah. So there's a retractable roof potentially coming with an Eagles. So I don't know what that would look like. But yeah, so end of the day, we have to see how this unfolds. It's a construction project that's going to take 6 years, and there are always all kinds of roadblocks and hurdles and things you run into. But these are the new details as we got them today. And I think the big overarching thing that all of us can talk about is, this is going to be a habit-changing, potentially generational shift for a lot of fans, right? Where the Eagles will still be king, and the lots and the big South Philly complex are still the big thing. But this is going to force a lot of people to reconsider what the process of going to a game looks like, right? Where that's not really been a thing for any Philadelphia sports teams for a long time. And this now puts the focus too, this is a separate show, on SEPTA and all the requirements that are going to come with that.
Part of the proposal was that 40% of attendees to this new arena would use public transportation.
Yes.
Currently, 85% of people drive to the Wells Fargo Center. So that's not even saying like the remaining 15% use public transportation. They could be walking. They could be getting, not that many people walk to Wells Fargo, but still, point is, even if it's 15% to 40%, that is a massive shift.
It is, like, I could walk to this new arena now in a way that is more accessible than walk into the South Philly one. I would say that. And there are plenty of people that live around me in my part of the city that will also be true.
Yeah. So think about them, or you having to drive down to South Philly right now and dealing with that traffic, where in this case, it would be totally different for the people who live in the city and find it very, very easy for them to go on foot to this new arena, to get to the arena and not have to worry about driving downtown. The one thing that we always talk about when it comes to the traffic and the people who don't want to deal with the traffic here in the city is ignoring the fact that people who don't want to drive down to South Philly, even though it is the sports complex and it makes it very accessible, even with this SEPTA and the public transportation to get there, there are people who just simply do not like traffic jams in general. And that's fine.
Basically,
right?
everybody.
So everywhere. Right, exactly. It's everywhere. So it's just a matter of what you feel like you want to personally deal with when it comes to whatever traffic and whatever traffic patterns it is. And as you said, this is going to be a generational shift for a lot of people of changing their patterns, changing their habits of how they do things. But we also know that I know people who work in the city, like we do now, working in the city, who say, hey, I'm just going to stay in my office and get ready to drive down to South Philly for the games to get to the sports complex. Well, now those people, the same people, will stay in their office, but maybe go to an establishment, get something to eat, and then walk over to the arena. So while it will affect a lot of people in one way, it's also going to affect people in another way where it's going to impact them personally, where if you don't want to go to the game and if you give up your ticket, there's probably going to be a ton of people who are more than willing to take on those tickets simply because it works out for them, for their lifestyle of getting to this new arena versus having to drive to South Philadelphia. That's and we have a ton of people in this area, not just the city, but of course, as we talk about outside the city, living in the suburbs, living out a little bit further,
or like South Jersey,
or South
people,
Jersey,
for
they have to
example.
come over the bridge, and you're not going over the Walt Whitman. Now you're coming over the Ben Franklin, just because of how you're going to get in, where you're going to park, and those things. But you might find that easier. We've heard people from South Jersey who said, "This is going to be so much easier for me because I can take public transportation right there." And so we're going to have to find out and see. People like things, of course, on paper, renderings of how it looks. It all looks great. And then there are people who don't like it. But we all are going to have to make a decision of how much we do and how much we don't once things really start to get going. As you mentioned, Kyle, with things are going to change. And when they do change, we're going to have to see, okay, how am I going to get there? If let's say we're here doing the show, hey guys, what do you want to do? You want to walk over there, Bree? What do you want to do? You want to walk over there? You want to Uber down there, or you want to leave the cars here and let's go? We're all going to have these discussions to figure it out because this is what happens. Look, nothing is happening right now. Once again, on Market Street, right there between Market and Filbert, of where this is going to go. They tried something with the Fashion District. It's not working, and with this one, it's going to work to an extent that they're going to fill that building up. But it's just now what's going on around it and how it's going to impact so many people and how you are going to adjust to it, whether you like it, you don't like it, and see where you go from there.
It really is stunning, though, to think about, because at one point, some of the Chinatown leaders were asking for $163 million in this, the benefits package. They ended up at 60 over 30 years. That is barely more than the yearly Bobby Bonilla payments. It is a really small number, and it just shows
Great
how
agent
much
work.
It just shows how much leverage the Sixers had. Like, they, again, demanded $163 million. There are proposals of this in the last 48 hours, as some noise goes off that I hope isn't making it to the screen, but is completely distracting us. There have been proposals of this for $100 million CBA, $75 million CBA, and the Sixers did not budge at pretty much any opportunity. I'm not necessarily giving them credit for that because I think for the most part, I fall more on the side of the businesses impacted than the billionaire getting his stadium, but it does show the leverage that they had. And of course, the one final piece that the mayor committed $20 million for affordable housing in that area. There's been a little pushback on exactly what that means. Didn't sound like that was necessarily a firm agreement per se. In fact, one of these statements I saw is that this is not, and this is quoted from Kendra Brooks and Nicholas O'Rourke, this is not part of a community benefits agreement, but rather giving developers an out from their responsibility to mitigate the harm caused by their own project. Another quote here, I didn't even understand where the money was coming from, said city council member.
Which
Jamie
that's a pretty
Gauthier.
important thing when you're talking about money around $20 million.
It didn't feel like a commitment, and it didn't feel good enough to support Chinatown. We need a real commitment to affordable housing and not a handshake. So that, it seemed like that $20 million was part of what got this over the finish line. And it does seem like there is a lot of consternation about that.
Yeah. And look, not going to sugarcoat
Which again,
it, right?
that comes from the city, not from the Sixers.
Yes. This is a separate. So Mayor Parker sent a letter, I believe it was late last night, proposing this $20 million coming from some nebulous community funds or city funds.
Coming from somewhere.
We're going to figure out where the heck that $20 million is coming from. I can't imagine the soda tax is making up for $20 million. So on a serious note, it's hard to sit here and say with any confidence, even having, look, I read all the impact studies over the summer, right? Where it's hundreds and hundreds of pages of this is what it looks like might happen to Chinatown and Washington Square West and the businesses there, right? And some of those numbers transparently are not good, right? There was, I believe it was upwards of like 60% of businesses could be negatively impacted. It was something like 20% they believed would be positively impacted. What I would say and sit here and say today as a Philadelphia resident is I hope that those are wrong and it goes in the other direction where there is a downstream positive impact on Chinatown, right? Because I will say from my personal experience, and this is just my, friend group, family group, whatever, I think people are going to Chinatown less and less right now because people are going less and less to that neighborhood. Like that general area of the city is not trafficked as much as we used to see it. Like Devon and Derek and I talked about that being this big shopping corridor that's the strip that the arena is on or could be on Market Street, right? And we're talking about a situation where the Wanamaker building that has Macy's, which that's like a iconic. That's what I think of when I think of Christmas, is like going to that Macy's, looking at that really old light show and just kind of walking around Market Street, going to the different buildings and things there. Well, they're probably going to leave, right? Like there's a lot of reporting on that the Wanamaker building might get turned into just apartments, and probably high-end apartments. And that has broadly been the case for that area of the city because people are just not finding it, whether it's profitable or just not finding it a good home for their business and where they want to be. So I hope that this is something that can rejuvenate that area. Whether it will or won't, I have no idea. And obviously there's plenty of data points to point to at this point. All I would say on the Chinatown front for now is that in these studies and in the discussions we've had about it, a lot of comparisons are made to other cities where there was a nearby Chinatown, but the distinction between those cities and those arenas where the local Chinatowns there, I believe Washington, D.C. is the big one that always gets pointed out. They actually bulldozed Chinatown buildings and businesses in order to build the arena in the first place. It's very noteworthy that is not happening here. At least that's not what has been agreed upon in this proposal. That's why I would say, even if you are like a pro arena person, I think you need to hold the city, hold the Sixers accountable on you're not going 1 foot past where you say you're going, right? Yep. It is one thing to carve out that part of the mall that nobody goes, the fashion district that no one goes to. They're losing money like crazy on there. Getting rid of that for an arena doesn't really bother me much, right? But once you start intruding into businesses and apartments and houses and homes, that is a much, much different proposition to me. And so I hope that because this has gone through city council, because there's been so much scrutiny on all this, and the Sixers have said over and over again, we're not going past, it's like that great old Greyhound station that right used to be there, right? Yep. That's the hard line. I hope that remains the case, and I hope that everybody can gain from this in their respective ways.
More arena talk on the other side when we get back. This is the PHLY Sixers Podcast presented by Bet365.
All right, first up, we want to tell you about Rite Aid because we want to make sure that you are feeling your best. Help protect yourself from pneumonia. Adults aged 50 and older are now eligible for the vaccine. It was previously for ages 65 and older, but the CDC lowered the age recommendation to 50 plus. Millions of people get pneumonia every year. It's a respiratory illness, and fall and winter are a time when germs that cause respiratory disease typically spread more in the community. So now is the time to get vaccinated and help yourself stay healthy. Some people who get pneumonia will only have mild symptoms, but others will get serious complications. Vaccine is one of the best ways to help keep yourself healthy, and it's usually done with no cost with insurance. Getting vaccinated is easy. Just walk into your local Rite Aid or schedule online at riteaid.com. If you're unsure of what vaccines you may need, just ask your pharmacist for a personal recommendation. Stop by your local Rite Aid today.
And guys, I have to tell you about one of our wonderful partners who's been here from the beginning. That's right, the good people at Game Time. Here's the great news, everybody. The Sixers have actually been watchable lately, at least when their schedule has actually allowed them to play basketball, which has not been the case all this week. But maybe you want to get down to the current arena to savor these memories before a new arena comes. Well, here's the good news. Game Time and the Game Time Picks feature, that's a new feature on the app, filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. I've told you about the features before, but I'm going to tell you about them again because they're just as good as they were the last time. Panoramic seat views in the Game Time app. So before you buy, you can see exactly where you're at. Doesn't matter if you're in the back corner of the arena, courtside seats, up in the upper deck at the link, whatever it might be, you can see what your view is going to look like. and you can see what it's going to look like for your type of event, right? Because they host concerts, they host sporting events. You can see the variations of the seat view. It's a wonderful feature. And oh, by the way, you can see all-in pricing immediately. So when you toggle that feature, you see the total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout, no 15-step process just to see, oh, this is what's going to cost me to go to a game, go to a concert, go to a show. I love that about Game Time. And by the way, they have Game Time ticket coverage and their lowest price guarantee, so they'll credit you 110% of the difference if you find a better deal elsewhere, but you won't. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Devon?
Game time.
Who?
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast presented by Bet365. And what would it look like on Game Time looking in the new arena on the app? Derek, of course, we don't know what it looks like yet, but I'd imagine Game Time would be around where you can probably get some tickets for.
Imagine it is a good 7 years away, so we will see how much things change. But yeah, we can drop that rendering right in there and get a good idea.
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, the rendering is pretty cool. It all looks great. No traffic, by the way, in the rendering. I don't think.
That's true. That's true. No trash, no nothing.
No traffic,
Beautiful.
no anything. Nice rooftop where you can go up there and hang out on some of those nice days as well. So looking forward to what that might look like. But something like this does not necessarily go through clean, as we all know. And you see there's cheers and there's jeers. There's name calling at these city council meetings and the type of things that are going on. And we saw some vicious things, at least from some of the quotes. Since we were not there, we didn't actually witness it. But from some of the quotes, man, you saw that there was some really vicious things going on in there, where some owners of some small business owners saying some things, some people that are residents down there as well, pointing out some things that they did not like. But you're going to get this type of both sides in a big, important decision like this.
Yeah, and well, here's the thing with these major projects are, no matter which way it goes, it's going to negatively impact somebody.
Sure.
It's unavoidable. If the arena doesn't get built, it can negatively impact a lot of union jobs, as Kyle was bringing up before the show. If it does get built, it can certainly negatively impact a lot of people in Chinatown. There's just no getting around that. Which, is it an overall net positive or net negative? Judging by the studies released, you would say net positive, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not a city planner. This isn't my wheelhouse. I can't speak with authority on that. I'm certainly not going to sit here and lecture anyone on you should not be worried. You should not have anxiety about this. You should not feel a certain way. I will never, ever, ever do that about this subject because it will impact lives. There's just absolutely no getting around that.
Yeah. And to your point, Derek, I did say before the show, and not to go too far down we try to it's hard to keep the politics out of this is a political thing on many levels, right? It is interesting that it's this is a big job creator, and people are always demanding create more jobs, but not like that. Right. And it's just so there's always an interesting dynamic at play there. I would say this, going back to the summer, and I still believe this, you can't have the 76ers leave Philadelphia, right? Yeah. And this was, to me, in my mind, and the Sixers will never admit to this because they denied all the, the Camden stuff and all that. They don't want that. And I do believe that the Sixers wanted a downtown arena. They wanted a Philadelphia arena. Some of those reasons are for selfish, and I would say most of those reasons are for selfish financial reasons, but also because they are aware, certainly if Josh Harris isn't aware, certainly people around him are aware that with him owning teams that are rivals of other Philadelphia sports teams, if you then pull the Sixers out of Philadelphia entirely, the people here are going to try to run you out of town harder than they already are right now. That was just not going to wash with, I would estimate 90+% of the fan base would have been viscerally upset about something like that.
I think
there is a group of people that are like, hey, I'll go to Jersey, whatever, or the South Jersey people, but vast majority of people are like, no, the team belongs to the city. And not leaving there is the right thing to do on many levels. That doesn't mean it comes with 100% squeaky clean. This is going to work perfectly and impact no one. Of course not. But I'm glad that ultimately the city and the Sixers were able to find a path to keeping them here. Selfishly, because I don't want to have to go to Jersey more than I do already, but also because I just feel strongly that they might write the checks, they might own the team on paper, but the city owns the team in many ways. So I'm glad it's staying in Philadelphia.
So am I. Nothing changed from what we've discussed in the offseason about that. Like Derek said, it's tough for us to talk about other people and what they have to do and what the commute. Oh, it's no big deal. Just get on the train. Look, you have to make that decision for yourself. But me personally, like I always remember the one that says, Devon, why are you making it about yourself? Well, for me is I have to find out a way to get there too.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and just because I liked how things were run, so do everybody else. You like things done a certain way. And so you point out personal things that may have impacted you and how you are going to get around. I want to know how Kyle, Derek, Bree, myself, how we're going to get to the arena if it is down the street, or if it was in Camden. How would we decide to, while we are downtown, how are we going to get over that bridge? Hey, it's going to be some traffic when we get done to get over there. All right, same thing for other people, but we would have to find a way. And that may not be for you, may be for me, maybe for all of us here. But everybody's going to be impacted. But I am glad that it is staying. And I am one that I'm curious with a lot of things. So with this, we see the renderings, we see everything on paper, we see the money being discussed. Okay, now when you build it, the traffic is going to be nuts downtown while they're building this place. We know that.
And that will impact me every day I drive into this office.
Every day. And so,
Oh,
okay.
Gosh, you're right.
Yeah.
If we're still here in this spot in 7 years, it'll be both incredible and also terrible.
Exactly. But I'm curious.
A lot of StreamYard shows.
I want
fellas.
to see. Yes, indeed. I want to see what it looks like. New is always cool. New is always good. So, but it's also what you do around that new. What do you do? So when it comes to the jobs that are being created around that new jobs, new establishments, new stores, new storefronts that are going to be down there on Market Street as well to help out.
Or even just people
foot traffic.
rediscovering the old stuff too is a big thing as well.
Not just Market Street, but going over to Chestnut Street and feeling like, hey, it's not a long walk to Walnut Street where you may want to go over there and do something. Maybe you want to go shop and you say, well, I have my car parked in the parking lot. I can go buy this from whatever X store I went to, go to the parking lot, put it in my trunk and go over to the game because you don't have to worry about those things. So there's going to be a lot that, yes, it affects a lot of people. It affects a ton of people. It affects everybody that goes in and out of this city. But do you want to go see a basketball team? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you're just watching on television. But again, I think there will be more people who are, the curiosity will hit a lot of people of, let me go check it out and see. Like Malk says, let's all group up and go to City Blue. Yes, that's what we used to do. Now, City Blue, I don't even know if it's there anymore. We can go to another store. But yes, that's it. But the curiosity, I think, is going to hit a lot of people, even the ones that are frustrated with it. And yeah, they're going to be boycotting. But what's also going to happen? It's 6 years, 7 years until this
City
gets
Blue
done.
on Chestnut or on Market is still there.
It's still there? Okay. 6-7 years from now, when it's time, you might not feel all that bad, especially when your child wants to go to the game. How are you gonna? I just don't feel like dealing with the traffic. No, you're gonna deal with the traffic to make your kid happy and try to go through the game. Listen,
what I want to happen out of this is multifaceted, but the bottom line is take public transportation more. Like, I think there is such an aversion from some people. And I'm not trying to make this like a suburbs versus city people thing, right? Because there are a ton of people in the city who do not interface with SEPTA whatsoever. And so they have their own preconceived notions the same way that someone who lives out in, I don't know, Norristown or somewhere in Montco, somewhere in Bucksco, wherever, Glenside, that they have their, this is my experience taking the train. What needs to happen is multifaceted. One, got to get more funding for SEPTA. There's got to be a more regular schedule of trains
that is my
going to and from all these places. And this, Derek is probably a better spokesman for this because he's coming from further than Devon and I do day to day. But you have to make it so that when people make that decision of like, because there were many times I grew up, I've said it on the show, I grew up, let's say about 45 minutes from the city, right? And there were several different regional rail lines within a short drive of my family and where we grew up. And there was always a decision. It depended on the night or the day, what our schedule was like, or if it was a weekend, that made it a little bit easier to, we can plan around going on SEPTA, but sometimes the trains are just not running, right? It's like they're on hour intervals.
Yes.
And so if you miss that, that sets you back an hour, and then you potentially miss the start of a game. And so that is one of the number one things the Sixers have to try to take the lead on and try to push for this and advocate for this. And frankly, financially help support SEPTA. I know that that's part of the broader agreement, right? That I believe in the first year with tickets, they're going to provide SEPTA passes. So people who are going to games are incentivized to actually take SEPTA.
Mm-hmm.
I challenge people who don't do it regularly, take the regional rail just like once or twice. Take the Broad Street line to get to and from some places. It's a lot easier than you think. And as long as you plan around it, which I get, that's an added step that some people want to take. It is a really low maintenance, easy way to get in and out of the city or get around the city. And I promise you, you're not running into roving gangs. This isn't the Warriors, right? Like they're not taking over the city. It's a very oftentimes nice, quiet, peaceful ride to wherever you want to go. We have to be on SEPTA to get the trains up and support the arena in some way, but support not having traffic. So I'm just challenging people, use SEPTA a little bit. It's not as bad as I think people believe it is.
To your point, because I lived in South Philly for over a decade and used to take subway and train and buses all the time. It was great. Loved it. Moved out, now I live in the suburbs, never take the regional rail. Never. And a big part of that is because it's just so inconvenient. Specifically, if you're going down to a game, being able to count on trains being often by the time that game ends, when you don't know when that end time is going to be, is very, very inconvenient. Mm-hmm. And I think for people right now, I understand if you live in the suburbs and don't want to rely on the regional rail. That's as somebody, like I said, who uses subway all the time, who use buses all the time. I understand not wanting to rely on regional rail when you're not on like a set work schedule.
Yeah.
So they need to certainly have more trains running. They need to build that out to make it more worthwhile. And then things like giving you fare with your ticket, I think will also help with that.
And Keith B in the chat says, I love to take the train to games, but I almost assuredly can't get back. Now, I don't know where
and it's a
where
great
you're coming
point
from, but yes, that's something that you have to navigate and figure out, and that's the decision of doing so. If not, then probably driving at that point.
So that then becomes, I bring it up, we're not going to hammer it, right? Because that becomes more of a public policy, like up to the governor type of thing. The Sixers can only do so much in terms of incentivizing and advocating for, but they need to do the maximum amount of that, because the idea of this arena and the success of having a downtown arena in many ways rests on changing those habits and getting people to take SEPTA more. So some of that is, yes, making sure more trains are going to and from these games. So it's not just easier to choose that and go to a game that way, but to leave a game that way and not worry, hey, game went a little long, we're screwed, right? We're just stuck here in the city and we don't know how long we're going to wait, or even if there is a train going back there. That's what they have to avoid in the future.
Yep. And Keith B then adds, teams supposedly, as you talked about, Derek, only paying for 1 year of passes for full season ticket holders. So
there's been a lot of debate over the language that was used, and I know that was one of the things that was being negotiated in some way. So I guess we'll see what that ends up. I also think there's the last I saw, now this was a proposed amendment, so I don't know if this made it through. There was a proposal that if the Sixers aren't able to meet the percentage, the 40% number that Derek brought up earlier for public transportation, then I believe that has the potential, that 1 year of passes has the potential to get extended. And so that might be, I don't know if that actually got agreed to, but that was something that was floated by members of city council to really incentivize the Sixers to try to get their fans to get on SEPTA, basically.
Can't wait to see it, but we do have to wait. 7 years is going to be a long, long wait, but when it finally gets here, it's going to be something fun to watch these games at the new place. All right, when we come back, we'll get a quick update from practice from Derek Bodner. We'll also jump into the NBA Cup. Kyle, game time. You talked about it a little bit earlier. You can get some NBA Cup
tickets. I should have mentioned. Yeah.
Some NBA Cup tickets. We'll talk about that also on the other side right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast presented by Bet365. All right, and I also have to tell you, as we sit here and discuss all of these great things, I have to tell you about, when you're saving that money to get ready to pay for these tickets, you got to go see the great people from TrueMark and TrueMark Financial Credit Union. We all know how hard it is to win without proper coaching. Well, it's pretty good coaching here in this city, but if you need some coaching, especially for your young ones on how to spend their money responsibly, financially, teaching them now, getting them to some really good habits when it comes to their finances, well, TrueMark has you covered. And if I've got kids, and TrueMark has the ultimate playbook for teaching financial responsibility with the Greenlight account, which is free. I have a young niece, my sister, and my brother-in-law. They talk to her about finances, and I was recently talking to them about the Greenlight app, which is changing the game, helping kids and teens learn how to earn, save, and spend wisely. You know how when you're young and you're a kid and you always feel good. It's that moment of proudness when you feel like you bought something with your own money and you feel good about it, right? Well, the young kids can do that. They can set up savings goals, track their spending, and even get an allowance all right there in the Greenlight app. And here's the really cool part as well. Each kid gets their own debit card so they can make purchases, learn real world money skills, while you stay in control of your phone, and they're feeling happy because they feel like they really did something as a young person doing some adult things overall. With the holiday right around the corner, now is the perfect time to introduce your kid, niece, nephew, young cousin, and your family members for their kids as well to Greenlight. Get signed up today. Visit TrueMark.com/Greenlight for more information. Once again, visit TrueMark.com/Greenlight for more information.
All right, look, guys, if you got some home improvement projects, those can be really, really daunting. There's a lot of moving parts. It might not be in your wheelhouse, especially if you are like me. You want someone to make that process just a little bit easier, and if flooring is one of those things on your to-do list.
Can they help out at 76ers, please?
I don't know if they have any city planners, but we'll reach out.
Yeah.
Flooring is something that is on your to-do list. Empire Today is a place you want to turn to. With Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today keeps shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What they leave out of their selection is as important as what they put in. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. And Empire Today has a virtual floor designer, which is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy. You just snap a picture and you can instantly see how the new floors will look in your room. Shopping for floors at a big box store can be frustrating. You might be talking to someone today who was working in city planning yesterday. Flooring is all that Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. And they also service their own warranty, so with Empire Today, you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when you use promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com/PHLY for details.
All right, welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast presented by Bet365. I do want to tell you about the Die Hard program. Once again, we haven't talked about it, even though we did push it a lot during Black Friday and, of course, on Cyber Monday. I want to tell everybody about our great All-PHLY family, allphly.com, members Discord. Also, you can be a part of the PHLY Lounge. You can jump in on that. Post-game shows, premium written content for members at allphly.com. We have a game tomorrow. It's been a while since Sunday. Derek and Kyle will certainly write some things up from the Sixers game against the Indiana Pacers tomorrow night. 20% off events like the watch party that the Flyers are going to have here on the 28th. Flyers watch party, that's going to happen here shortly. So on the 28th, you'll have that in just about 2 weeks. That is going to be a great event. They take on Anaheim, and that's presented by Coors Light, our good friends from Coors Light there as well. So make sure that you check out our great diehard program to become a member. Find out from events, dope merch for all teams. We got some new merch out there. Free shirt when you do become a member as well. You get great written content overall, not just from the team here, but also with the Eagles, Flyers, Phillies, and you have the Union, Penn State, all of that stuff right here at allphly.com. Check out the store at allcitynetwork.com, or just simply go to allphly.com, go to the merch part, hit the drop-down box, click Philly, and go get your Philly gear to represent the PHLY family overall, as Bree has all these great shirts running across the bottom of the screen. Happening. You see what we have available. You get the beanies that the guys didn't even know about that are there. It's cold out. As Kyle talked about, it was 65 degrees yesterday. It's 35 today. So it dropped. You need the beanie. And sometimes you're like, oh, man, I thought it was warm. Like yesterday it was going to be warm again. Don't worry. You got the beanie right in the back seat that you can just put that on. And when you talk about playoff games for the Philadelphia football team, you could also throw on your Scully. Throw your Scully on for the game as well. But get all of that
to America
at AllPHLY America One at allphly.com to get all of your gear right there. And of course,
maybe we need to do like a To America segment every once in a while on. So like Beanie versus Scully.
Yeah.
The Sean and Boys to Men, as we went over this week.
Versus Sean Wayans.
We'll think of some. Whether Derek Bodner knows how to swag surf, that also came up this week.
Potato, all that kind of. They're all over the place. We can do America 1 versus America 2 right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Derek, you went to practice today. Sixers have their game tomorrow against the Indiana Pacers. By the way, pregame show, that will be tomorrow with myself and Rich Hoffman. Derek and Kyle will be at the arena as the Sixers take on the Indiana Pacers tomorrow at 7 p.m. So pregame is 6:30. Right here with Bree and Rich, beginning at 6:30, presented by Coors Light. Derek, practice today, though. The first thing we all want to know, of course, is Joel Embiid, Paul George. Yep. Will we have an opportunity to see them again for a second consecutive game?
Yeah, well, all of them practiced today. Joel was a participant in practice. The only people who were not a participant were Adembona and Caleb Martin. Outside of that, sounds like we're good to go. Not going to tell you we're good to go because everyone knows anything can happen. It feels like almost literally anything can happen in 24 hours, so there is still time. But from right now, from where we're looking now, it seems like we are good to go. Outside of that, it was a pretty boring practice, all things considered. Paul George spent some time talking about sort of like the mental, how tough it is mentally to go through these injuries. Like, look, I've had my share of injuries from the leg to shoulders to the knee problems he's having now. Knowing that you are not what you are physically capable of, there is a mental battle within there, and trying to find a way to get back to there and being comfortable when you're sort of like in that middle ground. So he spoke a little bit about that. Kelly Oubre spoke a little bit about defensively how the team has been playing better lately and how they've been locked in and all that. But outside of that, the highlight is Joel Embiid played basketball in practice, and that is a big deal in 2024.
When we get consecutive days of Joel Embiid out on the floor, that is a good day. And so hopefully, look, because that's the key to all this, to building momentum, to trying to climb up the Eastern Conference standings, to just looking like a real basketball team. They can do it. So we've seen now the version with Joel Embiid that we got on Sunday. That's a version of this team that can win games. Frankly, the version of this team with just Tyrese, Maxey, and Paul George, increasingly we've seen that team can win games. Now, maybe they're not going to beat the upper echelon teams in either conference, but they're a team that could be competitive, that can be good enough on defense to make up for some of their offensive shortcomings. Like they have come along. They look like they are building chemistry, but they got to build chemistry as the full group, right? Because that's a group that goes from, yeah, maybe you can flirt with 500 with Paul George and Maxey and the rest of the guys. But with Joel Embiid out there, if you can build chemistry, if you can keep him healthy, if you can get a 20-game stretch, 15-game stretch, I know that sounds very ambitious right now, where you have almost everybody available for most of that time, you can win 60%, 70% of your games, and you go from way under 500 to you are right back in the mix for a good seed in the Eastern Conference. And by the way, one of the things that we're going to find out is how much are they going to adhere to the Joel Embiid no back-to-backs schedule, because that January schedule is, I don't want to say it's a disaster, but they are going to be very busy and play a lot of games in a short amount of time. How much will they rely on the big fella during that time? That remains to be seen.
No, it's a great question, because what did he talk about where he mentioned sometimes they're going to have to make him sit down. There's going to be a lot of infighting of, I want to play. I'm just going to go out there and play. They're going to have to force him to sit down, tell him, a lot of swear words that are going to be thrown back and forth with this type of discussion. He's going to want to play sometimes, and they're going to have to tell him yes. He's going to have to tell them, no, I'm playing, and we'll see how it ultimately happens out there on the floor. But yes, anytime that you have a chance to see Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid with a few days off and an opportunity to get some practice time too, where while they had Monday and Tuesday off, they did practice Wednesday and Thursday, and Nick Nurse must have felt good enough to give them that Monday and Tuesday off where they can get some things done on Wednesday and Thursday to get ready for this game Friday. Then they have the weekend off, play on Monday, and off again, Kyle, because they don't play again until Charlotte the following Friday again. So as much as they would probably want to be playing for a cup,
a lot
and
of
have
Hornets,
a much
man.
better record.
A lot of Hornets.
That's how you get right, man.
We always used to joke, Derek, Rich, and I, when we would sit at games back when Rich was full-time on the Sixers beat, it always felt like they would play the Hornets four times in
like
November.
February, yeah.
And it's like, or whenever it was. It would be in such a short amount of time. It's like, man, I'm sick of looking at that damn teal over and over again.
Man.
And I like the teal jerseys
Go get the
that
starter
Hornets
jacket.
have, but it's too much teal at any given time.
But for them, they need the teal right now because they need W's.
Bring on the teal and bring on some wins.
For them. Yes, because they want to get the double figures in terms of wins before they start to go to that 20 and losses and get there. So this works out pretty good for them, all things considered, from where they are. It couldn't have gone any worse except for just continue to lose games, but it can go up. It can improve. And with this schedule that they do have here, to get Embiid, to get George out there, to have Maxey as well, this is how you get right. So you have the practices, you get these games where you feel, we know these are more than winnable games, even against the Indiana Pacers.
Season starts tomorrow, you know?
Again, for like the fifth time. And with that, when you mention him saying, Paul George, that he's trying to get used to and getting comfortable with that brace, man, I just want to see him where he's Paul George, even at age 34. I just want to see him where he's Paul George, even with, out there.
Going back to Kyle's point about January, March is almost as bad. They've got 17 games in March. Yeah. There are 4 sets of back-to-backs in those 17 games. So you're playing more than every other day. 4 sets of back-to-backs.
17's the limit for a month, right? That was what they established. No more 18 and 30 days.
That was always Devon's thing, 18 and 30 days. Well, there's 17 and 30 days. That's not great.
How many home?
Especially only 6 or 7 at home.
Yeah, exactly.
At least 10 of them are on the road.
Again.
With a bunch of those back-to-backs. It is going to stress Joel.
A lot of shows from the studio, all of us in here in March, I suppose.
It's going to be a busy time, yes, because they will be on the road for sure for this basketball team. So we'll see how it all plays out, but good to see them against the Indiana Pacers tomorrow. Pacers right now having their own issues. They only have 10 wins right now, so they're still these are important for them too as they try to get back to the team that they were a season ago. Season ago, they were playing for the championship in the NBA Cup. Struggling this year, Tyrese Halliburton, not the same all-star level player that he was a year ago, kind of previewing tomorrow. And he also is trying to find his flow once again, where he has been struggling for that basketball
They've
team.
honestly been one of the biggest disappointments in the league. And they're still a really bad defender.
And they've been relatively healthy outside of Nembhard.
Yeah.
They've been relatively healthy, having Mathurin back in the lineup, integrating him a full season to Pascal Siakam, where they've had last year, plus the offseason and a training camp. and they're still having their issues.
And he's playing decently, not great, not difference maker, but he's actually shooting the ball decently, and it's still not enough. Their offense has regressed in a big way. And I think a lot of people, when they traded Buddy, were like, well, maybe he's a problem. Maybe get a little more stout in the backcourt. You can be at no, they're still a terrible defensive team, but they're not able to push the break quite as effectively as they did in the past. They're not generating as many transition opportunities. And you can find them into a half court, and when Halliburton isn't going lights out like he did at the first half of last year, they have been a very, very disappointing team at 10 and 15.
They do miss him.
Here's the story of the season to me. Tyrese Halliburton at home, 41% from three. Tyrese Halliburton on the road, 26%.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you said 41, I'm like, he's only shooting in the low 30s overall, so he has to be abysmal.
26% from three and under 37% from the field on the road. His splits are dramatic. It's like a 7-point drop off in road games compared to home games. Everything else is relatively flat, but when your best player and the leader of your offense is so bad on the road, tough to work around that. Now they've dealt with some injuries, right? There have been guys, real rotation guys who've been out of the lineup, but I don't know, man. It starts with Halliburton, right? Like
it does.
That's the tough part. So it's a road game for them tomorrow. You would hope that the Sixers can take advantage of it.
I saw you're going to be at the game tomorrow. Make sure you're on them. You're going to be on them. Make sure you stay on.
Jess with the what color heart?
What is it?
She's purple today, as far as I know.
All right, purple heart. Love it. Love it. All right.
I do worry a little bit that we bullied her into changing that back to a purple heart, but the world it just seems more right.
Well, she's going to have some Christmas gifts for us, so it's all good. You know, we'll be happy with the candy that she sends in here for us for the holidays. All right, we do have the NBA Cup. Pacers are part of it last season. Championship. Right now, after last night's games, they were settled. The late game where the Golden State Warriors, they lost to the Houston Rockets. The early game, the Knicks fell to the Atlanta Hawks, so they move on, where the Hawks will take on the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Rockets will play the OKC Thunder in the semifinals. That will set up the championship matchup. A little surprised the Hawks there, to be honest with you. But yes, the NBA Cup is back in Las Vegas. The Sixers are not playing, but we will be watching and finding out what's going on Saturday.
Feel the excitement.
I got to say,
tickets.
Trae Young playing CeeLo on the MSG Knicks logo is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life.
I also like Brunson's response. He's like, hey, if we don't want him doing it, we should have beat him.
Oh, so you mean he's not like the Ohio
Michigan
assembly member who proposed a law
finally read that
it would be a felony to plant a flag?
It's how about you defend your home
How
court?
about you stop being a baby? How about that, man? How about you not lose to a team that's having a crappy season? That went from that Michigan-Ohio State loss went from, oh, that's a bad season-defining loss to that's one of the worst losses in school history. You're going to the principal's office and tattletaling like, you can't do that anymore. Like, save all the sports. Anyway, so Trae Young's celebration was great, and I said on Blue Sky last night, I wish, not because I want the Hawks to be like better than the Sixers, but I wish the Hawks were better over the longer term, because Trae Young is such a great sports villain, especially in New York. He just goes in there, and I don't know what it is. I guess because he's had playoff success there, right? But he goes in there, and it's like he just owns that place, and they have no idea what to do about it. So I think he'll be fun to watch on the Vegas stage. But I will tell you, the game I'm looking forward to, Rockets Thunder. Houston. That is going to be so they had a recent game where they were 1-2 in the West, and I believe Houston won that game in the final 90 seconds or so. But two of the league's most exciting young teams, OKC better right now, but play a pretty similar-ish style, right? Like great defensive teams who can switch everything, really get into your chest. They bring guys off the bench like Amen Thompson and Alex Caruso and Tari Eason, who they come into the game and it's like you're getting hit with a sledgehammer. So selfishly, I wish that was the final, but it should make for good theater in that semifinal. Now, here's the good news for anybody who is a NBA Cup supporter who is worried about the cost of going to Las Vegas. It's only $29 right now to get in the door for Bucks Hawks. I think for Rockets Thunder, it's only like $39.
Check the flights, man.
And for a finals game, for the Cup final, the illustrious NBA Cup, $79 to get in the door right now.
I mean, look,
That's the cheapest ticket in Vegas.
Hats to Game Time. They certainly helped us get this price down. We paid way more to go to the Sphere than those Cup Finals games.
Yeah.
Check the flights, man. We're not busy this weekend. We don't have to go to the
Sixers
final.
are off.
You said the big game is the second game anyway.
We'll go to the semifinal. Maybe see, I don't know, who's playing in Vegas right now. I bet like Michael Bublé is over there singing Christmas carols.
We can go laugh at the Raiders on Sunday. Right.
Figure out something. There's always something to do.
Hey, come back and be ready
Vegas.
for Monday. We got a late game on Monday anyway.
Let's take a look at
Against
that
the Hornets.
Las Vegas Sphere schedule
There you
right
go.
now.
Check out the flights. Yeah, Bree, you ready? Hey, we out.
Hey, our boys Dead and Company are coming back to the Sphere, by the way. Might be time for a return.
Who's
trip.
there now? Did you figure it out yet?
I'm looking right now.
I'd go to another Sphere show.
I would.
Yeah.
If we had a weekend in Vegas, yeah.
Depends on who it is. I wouldn't go there to see anybody, but I would definitely go. I will go out of my way to go to the Sphere if there's someone I like really want to see.
Gene said, "Oh yeah, we gotta go Usher. We gotta go back. We gotta go see Usher while we're out there. We go see Usher.
He has a residency.
Yeah,
out
so
there.
we'll go see Usher on Sunday, and then we'll come back home and get ready for the Sixers and the Hornets, the teal team.
Oh, it's still the Eagles are
Okay.
still.
yeah, man. Those runs are long.
My dad
Dead
would
and
love
Co.
that.
and the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't. So for me, that's not as appealing. The Eagles are a good like greatest hits band, but it's not like my. If I was going for some kind of classic rock band, they're not at the top of the list for me.
All right, Bree, check the flights so we can see what's happening.
What would Bree's
Saturday,
dream Sphere
Sunday.
concert be? That's a sign.
Fleetwood Mac would be my dream Sphere
that is a
concert.
great one.
Just because the clock's ticking.
It is, and also you would wonder whether Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham will kill each other on stage the whole time. So that would add like a completely different element to the show. What a fascinating band they are.
I don't know enough. I know the names. I know Fleetwood Mac, of course.
The short
And I
version is
know-
they had a thing.
Yes.
And then they continued on as a band. And turns out there's a reason that workplace relationships are generally frowned upon.
All right. Good enough. Good enough.
Somebody said the White Stripes in the Sphere they'd like to see. Probably be a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I continue to say, and I'm not even like a big fan of their music. I think Daft Punk reuniting and playing at the Sphere would be the perfect, because they're just like a very visual group as it is. But unfortunately, they're not getting back together. So
Might have to get
moot point.
Have to get an NBA Cup hoodie, even though the Sixers. Not in it,
Ooh.
you know.
No, I'm not getting a hoodie until the
Well, do
Sixers
you think
actually
you know
play
how
in it.
they make those the NBA Finals or Super Bowl shirts for both teams, and then they send them to like countries that they need the clothing? I wonder how many of those they're making for NBA Cup. Do you think they make them for the semifinalists?
I will reach out and find out.
Devon's going to talk to his people and find
I'll talk
out.
to someone. All right, folks. We got a new arena that could be happening here in Center City shortly. Great conversation about it today. A little update on Embiid and Paul George for tomorrow night's game against the Pacers, and an NBA Cup conversation here at the end as well. We want to thank our presenting sponsors always, Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, it's time for the world famous roll call.
Hello, thank you, and goodbye to our friends Aaron,
What up,
Money
Aaron?
Marr, Jesse Bond, Flyers 99, Jess with the Purple Heart,
Hey, Jess.
Mrs.
What up,
Oubre,
Jesse?
Herb Jones' #1 fan. I'm pretty sure that's Hedfa, so hello to
What up,
Hedfa.
Heffa?
K-Red, I think I said Flyers 99, but I'm saying it again. Maxey 10,
Mal-
Martian Lynch, Mary Overfield, my girl Winona, always in the building.
Hey, Nona.
Mom's grandchildren says Devon. India is in Vegas.
Well, she wasn't supposed to say that. You know. So, Mom, text me that next time. And I do know that already. I talked to her.
DJ, a.k.a. Mr. Sandman, Al, the 2-minute warning.
What up, Al?
Thank you to everyone. Phi Chi, Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. Hit the thumbs up button to say thank you, super producer Bree, and also to help us out in the algorithm. We'll be back for pregame and postgame with the Pacers tomorrow. Goodbye.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.